Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. We'll get started in just a second with the program, but I want to take a moment and let you know a little bit about how the Oklahoma Manufacturing Alliance is growing stronger in 2021. My name is Jessica Mugg, and I work here at Oklahoma Manufacturing Alliance. The Alliance is evolving to a better, more efficient approach in support of state, industry, and individual manufacturers. Our plan still involves the familiar manufacturing extension agents, MEAs, around the state, but they now are complemented by regional business consultants, RBCs, and our manufacturing specialists with detailed expertise. One of the ways we want to share that detailed expertise is through these webinars. There will also be many other educational opportunities, and we can always visit one-on-one by Zoom or at your facility. This session today, like all of our workshops, is just a brief overview of what can be a much more detailed assistance offered by the Manufacturing Alliance. Of course, we still rely heavily on our network of sponsors and partners. Many of those partners have the capability and services that complement our goal of making your business more successful. We certainly cannot do it alone. We have many of our sponsors and educational partners on this call today, so thank you very much to all of those who are joining us. Also, our team of trusted advisors is now prepared to evaluate companies holistically by assessing, diagnosing, and optimizing operations. Through a new proprietary process, we can provide a comprehensive plan. Then, as we always have, we can connect you to our array of local, state, regional, and national networks, linking manufacturers with the exact resources they need to quickly push things into action. If you'd like more information on our assessments, which currently are subsidized by grants, so there's no charge to the company, please give us a call or drop an email. While there are certain changes to our operations, most things remain very much the same. Our outreach and extension system remain fundamental to the organization. MEAs are still accessible, and traditional services like problem solving, business connections, and engineering work remain available for manufacturers in all 77 counties. We are still there when you need us. Today's event will be an introduction to the three-part supply chain management webinar series we will be continuing throughout February and into the beginning of March. These webinars will be delivered today, pre-recorded by supply chain expert Jem Fleming. Throughout these events, our supply chain expert, Dr. Rajesh Krishnamurthy, will be live and answering your questions as they arise throughout the webinar. Rajesh is an engineer and manufacturing specialist with the Oklahoma Manufacturing Alliance and has over 2 decades of industry experience. Please utilize the chat function during the presentation to ask questions, and we will also have Q&A with Dr. Krishnamurthy afterwards. Thank you again for joining us, and please know this webinar will be made available on the Oklahoma Manufacturing Alliance website after today's event. And now, on to the webinar.
Welcome to the Welcome to the Supply Chain Management Series, brought to you by Oklahoma Manufacturing Alliance in partnership with the Business Excellence Group. I'm your host, Jim Fleming, and here for the next half hour to 45 minutes, we're going to be talking about these series, the design behind them, the intent, and how does this fit into the world of supply management and supply chain? What role do you play, and how is it going to drive the organizations that you're part of forward to be far more successful? The series consists of 3 individual courses or workshops. These are designed to be one-day sessions, whether they're face-to-face, or they can be broken up into smaller segments with the virtual environment. The goal is to try to deliver content that fits your needs and your organization's needs. In today's world with COVID, the driving into the virtual environment has become far greater of a necessity than in the past. Where this will be a year from now, who knows? But the goal is really be able to deliver good information, good foundation to help you strive for excellence. The 3 courses themselves will consist of the fundamentals of supply chain management. This will go through the building blocks, a little bit through the history of what supply chain is, how does it connect to the individual, the organization, and the global customer base. When we go into the proficiency of supply chain management, in this section, we'll actually be moving from the building blocks out of the fundamental. And we'll start to drive into making connections between the different modules. You'll start to see that we have access to information. We really get a good understanding of the fundamentals. Now we need to start to integrate. We need to find way to optimize, and we need to find ways to make sure that the entire organization is engaged with the supply chain. One thing that we have found over the years, it's important in order for a company to be successful that everybody is engaged with that degree of supply chain management. The interdependencies are critical. How we link into operations, how we link into engineering, how we link into finance, how we link into supply or the sales organization. All of these are needed to be in strong alignment in order to succeed. And that'll bring us into the 3rd session, and that's around supply chain total cost of ownership. Total cost really steps back and looks at the big picture. It's really easy to look at an organization and say that I want to touch one particular element of total cost or of cost. And when I deal with that particular cost, I might be striving to get what is viewed as the best deal. The unfortunate reality is most of these best deals have consequences, both intended and unintended. And what we will discover as we go through here is all of the various elements that fall into total cost. It is extremely large, and you can't overlook the degree of interdependency, because at the end of the day, when we truly deliver the product or service, it gets into a function of revenue that's generated, cost that is required, and into the bottom line of what is the profit margin we're trying to strive for. So you'll get a good insight of those portions of a supply chain. And with these courses, while there are 3 courses, 8 hours approximately each, you will walk away with a very strong understanding of what a supply chain is, the science behind supply chain, but it also requires to go out and make sure that you truly start to practice these different principles. Find opportunity inside of your organization where you can touch a particular challenge, a problem, a goal that you have established, and utilize these methodologies to be the solution itself. So that's one of the values that you're going to have coming out of these workshops. They will involve action learning. We will ask you to comprehend a particular product line at the beginning of the session. Think about what you're dealing with at your current workspace and really try to then start to make the connections between the models, the theories that we're going to be touching on in all of these workshops and overlay it into your existing workforce or the challenges and projects that you're dealing with. That way, it's a little bit easier to try to make those connections and bring this back in order to truly start integrating it very quickly to really understand and help the rest of the organization understand what the bigger picture is of supply chain. The exercises or activities that you will be exposed to throughout each session will range between 5 and 6. And these activities really will have you look at and reflect a particular topic that was just covered, figure out either through a set of data, a scenario, have you tried to come up with an answer, or comprehend how you would overlay it with a problem or data set that you have at work. You're going to engage with other individuals to do sharing of your ideas. You're going to get good insight. You're going to get good feedback. And that really is one of the main drivers of success out of these workshops is you are getting a chance to practice. You're getting feedback. You're getting ideas, not only from the instructor themselves, but from your peer base, because everybody has different experiences. Everybody has different ideas. And as you can work through these seminars and workshops, you can really start to figure out how does it truly align to your unique situation. And then in other cases, you may have very common situations with your peer base. So that's one of the major values coming out of these workshops. What is a supply chain? This is really where we need to start. It is nothing more than a network of entities that is looking at taking materials or services and transforming them into an end state product that your customer requires. If you were to take a look at this diagram on the right-hand side, it shows that our end product that a customer is looking to purchase is a laptop computer. Inside of that laptop computer, if you work backwards through the supply chain, every single item within that PC comes from different portions of a supply chain. The true starting point of the material itself in a supply chain come from the diagrams that we have here. We have metal ores, and this would get into aluminum, it would get into different steels that are utilized to build frames and to build different components inside of your laptop. Oil. The material itself is refined to create plastics, to create the rubber that go on the keyboards. And all of these things have to, again, be transformed from a crude oil into an end state product. And then the last one here at the bottom is sand. Computer chips that are used to power computers, PCs, laptops, all start with the base material of sand. And that is to get the silica out of that. When you hear around silicon chips, that's where it comes from. So if you were to just look at this particular model, there are multiple different steps that go through in transforming the raw materials into base materials, into formed materials, such as creating, the glass from of silica or the computer chips into a final product. And you order these from different suppliers. So when everything is said and done, the PC itself has probably 500 different components inside of it. Each one of those has some unique supply chain that has gone through somewhere from within the world. And that is the degree of simplicity and complexity. And that's one of the things that we will continue to talk about throughout this series is how do we make sure that we truly understand what's going on in the environment? Because one of the last things that we mentioned here, there is no unique supply chain that fits all different organizations or industry. As many products and services that are out there, you could have a unique supply chain, whether you're a corporation of 100,000 individuals, or you are a startup company of one or two people that are working from home. Supply chain has impact on each and every one of you. And what you have to do is figure out what is the right set of products or solutions within the supply chain that you need to implement in order to create a more successful experience and product line and making sure that you can meet what you truly are intending to deliver. One of the things that we need to think about is what we just talked about is a supply chain. Well, why manage it? And the perspective that comes out of what is involved with supply chain management. Today, there is approximately 7.8 billion people on this planet, and they are all engaged with some form of supply chain, whether it is food, housing, clothing, education, transportation, or their place of employment. Everybody is engaged in some type of supply chain. And that drives it into what's the global economy? There's $88 trillion spent in an annual basis today. And that is all of the different goods and services that are supporting the needs of these 7.8 billion people. And one of the things that's really unique is these are growing year over year, and not just at a very slight linear rate, but they're growing exponentially. The amount of people on the planet, the amount of available money to be spent within each one of these markets continues to grow. And that brings it into information that has come from the World Economic Forum that just says there today is about 200 million companies in the world. And that is very eye-opening because each and every one of these companies are trying to truly be successful. And we have some that are competitors. We have some that are small companies versus large companies. And we sometimes see where small companies can grow to overtake large companies or vice versa. Large companies stamp out small companies or they acquire them through mergers and acquisitions. So within the amount of companies, there are all kinds of different complexities. And one of the things we want to do is make sure that we understand the supply chain and how we can truly make it work for us. And then one of the last interesting facts, in the world of supply chain, companies that are employing and making products and services, there's 450 million people that work within these companies. And that in itself, you have to basically figure out how do you engage and align that quantity of individuals to make sure that you are successful in supply chain. Supply chain alone in the United States is about 45 million, and that's companies that make products or services. Now, supply chain people, it's a smaller portion of that, and we'll talk to that a little bit later. But at the end of the day, the numbers are staggering around what we're dealing with in the world of supply chain, and you can truly continue to gain skills out of these different workshops to move forward to figure out how do you leverage this to your advantage. A little bit around the history of supply chain, and I find this to be fascinating. They've gone back and they've done research, and they basically state that supply chain management started about 3000 BC. And this is when the Egyptian pyramids were being built. You had scribes that actually tracked the different amount of materials and labor that was going into this. And, think about the materials that were really going on or going through these. You didn't have probably a lot of different suppliers. You didn't have global competition. Probably weren't discussions around the quality material. Maybe there was, I don't know. But the other thing is these inventory and planning and purchasing systems were actually done on what's known as a papyrus paper. And this is basically a plant-based paper that they were scribing on. So that is a very crude supply chain, but at the time it was probably very advanced. And when you look at the outcome of what was created and delivered, it's phenomenal. Now, let's fast forward this 5,000 years. We have some of the greatest supply chain companies in the world that are sitting on record market capitalizations. Amazon and Apple. In these past few years, they've passed the $1 trillion market capitalization limit. And if you stop and think about these, they are very powerful companies, very strong in supply chain, strong in product development, strong in innovation, but at the end of the day, their success is truly driven by their ability to meet the customer's needs. And the supply chain is a very critical portion of that. Take in account, both of these companies started with just an idea. Apple itself in the 1970s, 1980s, started with 2 or 3 people in a garage in Silicon Valley with an idea. Amazon, you take a look at Jeff Bezos, had an idea. And for a number of years, that company didn't make money. They were losing money. But we stop and look at it today, and people define success within a supply chain as something that looks like Amazon. You can get anything you want. You can understand, how it's being different quality elements of it. You can get good deals. You can look at different suppliers of a product. You select, you purchase, you have true visibility around what it is that you're getting, where it's at, when it's going to be delivered. And oh, by the way, they do this thing called reverse logistics. If you want to return it, it is extremely easy relative to the way things were 10, 20 years ago. So they are defining what supply chain is. And both of these companies started with individual ideas. So if you're in a company today that is small and you're trying to grow, think about what's possible. And the what's possible can also be accelerated through supply chain management. Within the first course that we're going to be talking about, it's going to be called the Fundamentals of Supply Chain Management. And we have the different objectives. One of the things we're going to talk about is what is supply chain and why is it important? And you're going to see that, we've already talked about this. There is a degree of the, how am I impacted within a supply chain? And we've grown up in a supply chain, whether we realize it or not. Every time we go to buy something, we have exposure into a supply chain. And that's one of the things we're going to help start to make those connections into the world and everything that's moving forward and how it can be influenced. We'll talk about the objective of leadership alignment. And supply chains are successful if you have leadership vision that values the need for excellence out of a supply chain. And one of the things you want to make sure is you understand if you're going forward to drive a very sophisticated supply chain, do you know the direction the organization is wanting to go? And leadership has ideas. They create the vision, the mission, the purpose. What you really need to do is make sure that the work you're doing is in strong alignment with the direction the company is going. Nothing worse than have a bunch of individuals that have really good ideas, work really hard in supply chain, and then find out there's no effort whatsoever to implement it because leadership is doing something else. So understand their true north and make sure what you do is in alignment. And we'll show you ways that you could create that connection. We'll start talking about product and service market demand. In this world, you're going to start to try to understand how do you manage supply chains within different product life cycles, whether you're in a startup of a product, research and development, in a ramping phase of a product or service, or end of life. There are different strategies that you take. And then we get into supply chain planning, and this area goes into really understanding the economic model when you talk about supply and demand. And the supply and demand curve is optimized when your supply chain individuals find that section of, or that intersection. So you're looking for quality or quantity and pricing. You're looking for what is the demand, what is the supply, and if that intersection point is where you are truly trying to strive to make sure your organization is achieving. We'll talk about sourcing, and this gets into working with an organization on what they need, not just what they want. So there are a number of different facets we can go after. We'll look at the production, manufacturing, and service support systems. What type of company are you dealing with today? Are you making material in a world of make to stock, such as electronic items? Are you making TVs, right? You're making significant amount of them and moving them forward where they're put into a stocking environment, such as a retail environment. Or are you working in a make to order, such as aircraft? When orders come through, then you start the production. Or another area that we'll cover is engineer to order. And this gets into, is your company being asked to design something and then work forward on a project management to bring it into fruition? And the objective of delivering and return systems. We'll really talk about overall logistics, warehousing, and then what happens when you actually have something that has to come back. And that has really started to evolve over the past decade, is the whole reverse logistics. Supply chain enabling. This goes beyond just saying we are only going to be covering the sourcing and delivering. There are things that you can do to make sure that we mitigate risk, that we are doing performance management with our suppliers to make sure we're getting from them what we are paying for. So there are different techniques and different competencies that we'll cover. Couple of statistics that stand out that kind of really help put things in perspective. When I'm thinking about the amount of impact I have, there are statistics that are showing that 45 to 60% of a corporation's revenue is actually managed by supply chain professionals. And oh, by the way, that group of individuals is about 1.5% of the total headcount of a corporation. So think about it. If you're a $1 billion corporation, your group of individuals, less than 2%, are generally handling and working with managing $500 to $600 million a year. So you want to have good strategies, good techniques, and good solid talent. That leads into a little bit more of our proficiency. The supply chain proficiency, we're going to continue to talk about the magnitude, exponential growth, the need for offshoring, global competition, and the need for reshoring. What does that take into account? We'll talk about sales and operations planning. And that is, how do we ensure that we are truly aware of what are our customers wanting, how frequent, what quality, and then we match the upstream supply chain to make sure that we're getting the correct amount at the correct time. We'll talk about inventory strategies. These are important, right? We have ABC inventory strategies. We look at the amount of safety stock, cycle stock, all kinds of different methodologies to make sure that we're truly managing the supply that we have. And we'll look at cost, price, and segmentation. When is it the right time to focus on just price comparisons? When is it the right time to look at cost analysis? And there are truly strategies that can help you figure out how do you allocate your resources to maximize the strategic alignment. We'll look at value creation and point of use. How do you engage a supplier to make sure that we are leveraging their ideas early on in the design cycle? Or how do we leverage the innovation they have coming this year, next year, and 5 years down the road? We'll talk about logistics in this topic of third-party logistics. There are a number of companies that have moved out of owning their own logistics and are hiring companies where that is their competitive advantage, and they are optimizing the overall outcome of their product line. And then last but not least, we'll talk to what are the technologies that are emerging as we go through the fourth industrial revolution.
No.
Or digital transformation. And you may say, well, we're a young company, we don't have a lot of money, and we don't use a lot of technology. We'll show you some technologies, whether you realize or not, you are truly becoming part of the advanced use of the technologies. But we'll go a little bit further. We'll talk to artificial intelligence, we'll talk to the Internet of Things and how things are kind of moving forward. Another interesting fact, when we are looking at the power of what supply chain professionals bring, CAPS Research out of Arizona State University has done statistical reporting on a routine, or on benchmark reporting on a routine basis year over year. And one of the things they find across industries, the average return on investment within supply chain is about 650%. So for every dollar that's invested, you are getting back $6.50 per year. Huge impact. And a lot of the organization isn't aware of that. So one of the things we want to do is give you tools to help you demonstrate the value that you bring, because the other staggering fact, when you look at the 1.5% that we talked about of headcount, if you look at sourceable spends across all corporations and the supply chain professionals that are managing that, each individual is managing about $33 million a year. You don't want somebody that isn't good at managing money to be dealing with that quantity. That leads us into a little bit of supply chain total cost of ownership. We'll start to look at the scope and opportunities that are existing. Most corporations today are operating on profit margins that are 2 to 3%. Razor thin, and they can be the profit margin can be completely wiped out if we don't have good cost structure coming from our supply chain. We'll look at systems thinking. How do I take all of the data that is available in the cost environment and put it into some kind of model? How do I make sense of what's going on? So systems thinking is an approach to help put that into perspective. We'll look at drivers within TCO, and this isn't just the materials or the labor or the profit margin, but we'll start looking at things that cover import taxes, export taxes, logistic cost, warehousing cost, engineering cost, project management cost, and it just becomes a large portion of what drives a corporation. And one of the things that you're going to find in this course is we align it to truly helping you understand how does it fit into your corporate profit and loss statement and also your balance sheet. So everything we do is in strong aggregation of those particular products that you have to put out. And when you start to understand how do you impact it, it's easier to start to make sense of coming up with strategies to control it. We'll look at spend data. How do you comprehend the amount of spend and then put it into some kind of order that you can make decisions? We'll look at spend analysis. We'll look at some other techniques to truly, inventory profiles across the entire supply chain that really try to help us see where do we need to make improvement. We'll map the current state. How do you start to truly understand where are all the costs and where are places that I can start to make the biggest impact? That'll lead us into techniques to reduce the total cost. How do I look at my inventory profile and understand how does it impact, as a function of the variation, the amount of risk, and the velocity of a supply chain or production line. And then we'll get into truly helping organizations make the change long term. Implementing progress or implementing these solutions so your company is gaining the benefit not only in the next 3 months, but 5 years down the road. We'll touch into how do you help shift some of the culture. Some of the challenges that are in supply chain, and this particular chart came out of the Standard & Poor's Index. Back in the 1950s and 60s, corporations on average had a lifespan of about 60 years. Look at it today, where it's at in the red. We're at 20 years. So corporations are no longer just coming into formation and then don't have to worry about being healthy and being viable long term. We do. And that's our role in supply chain, is really helping corporations figure out what can we do to keep the lifespan going, helping it become, go beyond that 20 years. The standard projections here, it's not really good outlook for a lot of companies. So how do we tap in and help them become that success? And I think one of the things that stands out, Sam Walton, founder of Walmart, 1962. His motto and the famous quote he had is, many of their best opportunities came out of the necessity. So they needed to do something fundamentally different in order to succeed and stay in business. And they're one of the companies that have been around a long period of time. So they're doing something to kind of truly live in this environment and shape and control the supply chain. And they today are the world's largest corporation from a revenue standpoint, but they're dealing with about 2% profit margin. So with that said and done, they have had to take on these challenges to make a difference and strive for excellence. And that leaves, what can you do in order to look at your corporation and help enable their future, enable your future? And that's the value of what Supply Chain Management Series can bring forward. It can help you start into this journey and truly understand what this profession is. How do I take the science, the tools, the models, techniques, and overlay it to my business? With this, I would like to say good luck. Enjoy these series. We'll have a question and answer session that can help you figure out what is the right timing for you, what can you possibly expect coming out of these sessions, and then work forward to make sure that you can execute. Again, thank you, good luck, and enjoy.
Thank you all so much, and I apologize, I muted my audio. I didn't realize that was going to mute my audio for everyone, so thank you for bearing with me through that. I appreciate it. We do have some time now for Q&A with Rajesh, so if there are any questions, please feel free to use the chat function, and we will answer those questions as they pop up. All right. Well, if there are no questions from the group, I want to say thank you so much for joining us again today. This webinar is just a brief overview of what can be much more detailed assistance offered by the Alliance. To explore further, don't hesitate to give us a call or drop an email. Working with our partners in taking advantage of everyone's capability, we'll make sure to connect you to the right resources at the right time. Together, we'll grow your business and grow Oklahoma. Again, see you on February 10th at 10 a.m. as we continue this series on supply chain management. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye.